And good morning, everyone. Welcome to this call presented to you by Restore Chesco. Restore Chesco is an initiative put together by our county commissioners. They created a task force of business, civic, and government officials to come together to help our businesses reopen, and not only reopen, but help us get ready to thrive and grow back to your fullest potential. Today, we're doing a series of calls for the restaurant industry. Whether your restaurant's currently closed or you're doing takeout or perhaps doing some type of outdoor dining, we have a group of folks together to help you reopen and reach your maximum capacity and hopefully be as financially viable as you can be, as restaurants are an important part of our economy. My name is Guy Shiraki. I serve as the CEO of the Chester County Chamber of Business and Industry. And along with Susan Hamley of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, we're co-hosting this session. This is one of several sessions that the Restore Chesco Task Force is putting on to help different business segments and the citizens at large get ready for the reopening of the economy. We're joined by Bob Raffetto, who had been the owner-operator of the Dilworthton Inn, Innkeeper's Kitchen, and has extensive experience. Bob has graciously volunteered his time. Today's call is being recorded so that we can keep it on the Restore Chesco site. You'll be able to look back at it. We'll edit it and shorten it down, but it'll be there available for you to look at and reference in the future. I should also mention that on the call are some additional attorneys and experts in government law or business support. So depending on your question, when we get to the question and answer portion, we'll have one or two of the experts weigh in. We're also joined by several other chamber executives. In Chester County, we're blessed to have 9 chambers of business and industry, chambers of commerce, and a number of the CEOs from across the county are on the call, and you'll see and recognize them stretching from Downingtown to Exton to Westchester and back again. So hopefully someone on this call can address your questions. A few programming notes. When you have a question, just enter it in the chat, and we will try and get to every question. If we don't get to every question, we will try and follow up. At all times, now for the last several weeks and continuing on, the county has set up, as part of Restore Chesco, an email address called business@chesco.org. You can email a question to business@chesco.org, and the county will send it to one of us or another member of the task force that we think are best equipped to answer your question. So if a question occurs to you, 3 o'clock this afternoon, 8 o'clock tonight, or a week from now, you can reach out to us, and we're going to keep this website active until every business is up and running and our economy gets back to its full potential. And we will try to get an answer or an update to you in 24 hours. So please never hesitate to do that. The one last thing I would say, again, is I'm going to mute all of the phones to try and cut down on the background noise. Our speakers will be able to present, and then we'll do our question and answer portion. And I would just remind you with the questions, our objective here is to help you open and succeed. This is not a gotcha question. There are no bad questions. So whether your question's about funding, safety, signage, whatever it may be, feel free to ask, and somebody on the call will answer it, or we'll find somebody who will. We thank you for being with us. We look forward to working with you and hopefully getting a chance to visit your restaurant soon. With that, I'm going to pass it over to our co-host for today, who's Susan Hamley. Susan's the Executive Director of Chester County's Convention and Visitors Bureau. Susan, thanks for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Guy. Also, thanks to everybody here who's zooming in this morning to hear more about how to properly open and green, as Guy said. And please ask your questions via the chat room. As he said, we're going to try to get to everything, and where there are follow-ups, we will capture and get back to you with the answers. So I represent the Chester County Conference and Visitors Bureau, and our job is to promote this destination primarily to folks outside the region, but also locals to visit. Most tourism businesses, as everyone is aware, like restaurants, can't survive on locals alone. We need visitors to help recover as a whole. There's going to be even more intense competition as travelers decide where to take their wallets. Our CVB will continue to advertise to leisure audiences, but we also secure amateur sports tournaments, meetings, weddings, festivals. These are all activities that create overnight business for our hotels, but they also send people to your restaurants, caterers, breweries, wineries. Everybody's got to eat and they want to drink. So all these tourism segments are interdependent on each other. Everybody needs to create demand together, and that will influence the health of your businesses as well as support jobs, very important, and economic impact for Chester County. So fully recognizing you're going to have your hands full with operational and other challenges, I will just ask if you and your staff can work it into the guest conversation, particularly with non-locals, reasons like our incredibly high quality attractions. Longwood Gardens is opening very soon to our guests, and that's the most incredible way to get away to another destination, experience nature. That would be fantastic. Encourage them to stay another night and to return to Chester County again. So now it's my pleasure to turn this over to Bob, who will present some key points regarding opening and green before we get into answering chat room questions. So who's Bob? Bob Raffetto worked at Dilworth Town Inn since 1977. He started mopping the floors. He co-owned the Dilworth Town Inn, Blue Pear Bistro, and Innkeeper's Kitchen since 1991, and, good timing, just sold them in January 2020. Previously, Bob sold business computers for Hewlett-Packard to the local region, to companies like QVC, IBX, AmeriHealth, DuPont, AZ, and MBNA. He's currently working with a group of 20 Del Cochesco restaurants to influence PRLA, Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, Team Wolf, and others to help get them open. And he generously offered his 100% support towards recovery of this important industry you all represent. So on that note, take it away, Bob.
All right. I'm going to share the slides that we have for today just to get everyone started. We have put together a whole lot of materials to make opening up easy. And hopefully you're seeing the screen with all of the slides now. I'll start on the next slide. The good news is we are in the green phase starting Friday. That's the 26th. Key for all of the restaurant folks out there, that's when we move to 50% interior occupancy. So that's one of the ways you can make some money. If you're open now in the yellow phase, I'll come to some of the things that you can do today, but I will tell you what I've heard from other restaurateurs. When you get open, it's like reopening from ground zero. There's a lot of things to work through. So I would suggest if you're going to reopen on Friday, do it a soft open. You might want to not open for the weekend. You might want to open a weekday just to get all of your procedures in place. This slide you've seen many times. It does keep changing. So I will note for all of the materials we present to you today that you need to stay current with what phase. Right now we're in green, and a lot of people thought that after green was, we're free again to the old normal. That phase after green was called phase out, but there is a new phase after green. It's been called gold, light green, dull green. I'm not sure what it will be called, but there is a phase after this as we move towards the holiday season. Okay, let me move to the next slide here. So where is your revenue where you can make money today and when we're in green? Number one, food to go is where the revenue stream is at. From all the restaurant peers I've talked to through Pennsylvania, through the Restaurant Association, from other states, everyone believes that food to go is going to stay with us a long time. It's just not a temporary thing. Drinks to go, which is new for us, you can make money. Key thing is you have to make sure those are sealed drinks, and no, they can't drink them in your parking lot. There are some rules about that, but we'll cover that later. Extra outside dining areas, be it in town like Westchester or at your own facility, you need to get an extension of premise. The nice thing is you get the extension when you file instantly, and it doesn't cost you anything. So you still have to follow the rules. If you want to sell wine to go, and some people have opted to invest the $2,000 to do this, you have to sign up for the wine extended premise program. Again, for the outdoor dining, you do have to get your township or your borough's permission. Indoor dining, when we go green, 50% of capacity. There's some wise ways to do it, maximum of 250 people. Next, you're going to ask me about reasons why people come to Chester County and go out. Sometimes it's for wedding celebrations and people come in early and they go to Longwood Gardens or other great attractions we have in the area. The rules for large events keep changing, like can people dance? So that is another one of the areas where you just need to keep current on what the current situation is with PRLA. Is probably the easiest place to get those updates. And everyone always asks me, what about the bar? The bar, you're not allowed to have open. You can have dining at the bar, but you can't have people sitting at the bar drinking like they used to, because you have to have the social distancing. That social distancing does not go away. So Guy and Susan asked me to kind of condense this down into what are the key things you need to do to get open. And with the 5 restaurants that I've been to help get their doors open, they were open. Almost all of them had missed the Pennsylvania Restaurant Promise from the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. Do you have to do that? No, but it's a great sign to build confidence and trust that you're a serious restaurateur about sanitation and following the rules. I'll give a shout out to PRLA. Governor Wolf said to them that they had not seen any bad reports about restaurants opening in the yellow phase, and that made the governor and his team feel very confident. So we all depend on everybody following the rules so that we can get open and stay open. The second bullet on there, the one that most people miss, is Pennsylvania's COVID-19 safety procedures. It's a 1-page or a 2-page sign. You must sign it and you must post it. It says who your Pennsylvania COVID manager is going to be. It's just one of those things. You can get it from prla.org. I'll go over that again later on, but that's the second thing we missed. And then for your staff, for your customers, for the kitchen staff, there's a bunch of posters that show that you're serious about cleaning, protecting customers, and those come from the National Restaurant Association, Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, the Liquor Control Board. In the materials we have today that go along with this, we have both front of the house, back of the house, and signs for your customers. And you'll see at some of the bottom of my slides there where I reference either the name of the PDF file that go with this, or the name of the or website where you need to go to. So I'm trying to give you pointers along the way. Number 2 in our steps to get open up is social distancing and barriers. I went to a restaurant and one of the restaurant managers says, oh, none of this stuff's important. And I said, it really is that important. We've had fellow restaurants get called out by their employees and by their guests. So people are paying attention. Everyone must follow the rules. You might get a pass the first time you break the rules, but we've been warned that you might not get a pass the second time. So let's make sure we're doing this right. It's 6-foot social distancing between people. So not 6 foot from edge of the table to the edge of the table, but kind of back-to-back distance. I found a lot of people didn't have the barriers needed for their cashiers or between booths. If you have booths, you might have to put up a little barrier between, but those things can get you a little bit higher density so that you can make more money. And the third bullet on this slide is how you need to interpret this. There's laws, there's rules, and there's guidance. Most of what the state is providing is guidance, because every situation, every restaurant, every hotel is a little bit different. And so instead of making laws, they wanted to be flexible. The rule is the state is flexible as long as you're following along in good faith. But if you've been warned, if you follow the Pennsylvania Restaurant Lodging Association in those meetings, don't push the rules, because once you do, then you'll be closed down, and then you might change it for everybody else. Step 3, outdoor dining, especially if you're like in the borough of Westchester, and that will open up shortly. You need permission to be on the sidewalk or in the street. So you'll have to work with your borough for that. If you're a traditional restaurant, maybe out in the suburbs somewhere, where you can use your parking lot, you need to get your extension of premise. Remember, that approval is instant when you file it, and it's free, but you need to get the permission of your township so that they're on board with you too. Also, consult your insurance agent, just because if you're changing your area, like going onto the sidewalk or into the borough street, you just want to make sure that you have the proper insurance coverage. And a lot of this information, as you'll see on the bottom there, is in Pennsylvania's restaurant industry guidance, which was dated the May 27th. There was a minor update to it, which is in the attached materials, where they talk about this people per square feet. So we have a number of options. That's your go-to document for that, and that's the third step. So Guy and Susan and I were talking, and they asked me, Bob, what are the first things to do? Restaurateurs, I know we're all busy, we don't have time. I will tell you, I spend about 15 to 20 hours a week on webinars, seminars, looking at the CDC website, the Pennsylvania website. I'm not sure everyone has the time to do that. If you're busy, I want to make you aware of where you can reduce your time investment, but always have the most current information. I would say join the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, PRLA.org. It's for free right now. They have a daily email from the president, John Longstreet. Great email. It tells you all the things you need to do, such as in Philadelphia, they were trying to change some of the rules for employees not coming back to work. So it's always the most accurate information. Second, go to Wednesdays at 11 a.m., the industry update from Melissa Bova. It's an hour long. She talks about what's new, what's political, where we are in the political negotiations, and what the rules are. Best investment of your time. If you were to do one thing and only one thing, I'd tell you to do that. Number 2 on my list for call to action. There's a lot of materials. Where do you find them? 3 places. PRLA.org/coronavirus.html. A lot of good things are there for masks, barriers, rules, you name it, it's there. You can search it for other materials too. And RestoreChesterCounty.org wants you to get open, and the related businesses in the county. So you might know other folks outside the restaurant business. Tell them to go to RestoreChesterCounty.org for information. You'll find stuff there. And as a follow-on, we hope to get the county officials to talk to all the residents about going out. So a lot of good information there too. And then the last, that's the Pennsylvania's document from Wolf. It was updated, I think, June 12th or or 17th. But the restaurant industry guidance, you can Google it, but it's in the materials that we have to go with this today. And with that, I've talked as quick as I can, but I think we're ready for the question and answer. Guy, you're on.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. And again, as Bob pointed out, this information will be available on the Restore Chester County website, along with recording of this, as well as the session we're doing at 1 o'clock. If you have any questions, please kindly enter them in the chat. If you don't know how to do that, you can raise your hand, or do it, if you're really savvy, you can raise your Zoom hand. Bob, I'm going to ask you if you can to release the screen back so I can see if folks are waving frantically at me because they're stuck on mute. So we did get some questions ahead of time, so can I share some of those as we're waiting for the other questions and the other chats to load up? And that question is, if you could go through for a restaurant that may be currently closed, what would be that sort of punch list of three to five things to not forget? For the restaurant that's currently closed, it's going to do that. What are those things you really don't want to forget in your frantic pace to order food, and things that are more practical, things you might not otherwise be thinking about because of the way we've been closed? What might they be?
They would go back to the last slide called Call to Action. There is, in the Pennsylvania Restaurant Industry Guidance, it's 6 pages long. It's an easy read. All of the details are there. I've shared it with several restaurateurs for them to look at. But the most common things that people have forgotten so far are, number one, you have to sign and post the Pennsylvania COVID-19 business thing. And it's a poster, it goes on your door. That was number one. Number two, most people are missing the barriers. They're like, do I really have to do it? Yes, you really have to do it because someone will report you. And third one that I would say is, I'm willing to, you can reach out to us, send us an email. I'm glad to have a one-on-one conversation. Glad to come visit you at your restaurant if it's not too far away. And I've done a walkthrough for 5 restaurants of the things that they've missed. I'm glad to help you out that way to save you time and get you started.
Thank you. There's some other questions coming in. And again, I would remind you that we're joined not only by Bob, but by several chamber executives, by local government officials, and a few attorneys, one of whom is Skip Ryan. Skip is a local attorney in Westchester, a longtime Chester County resident, and advises a number of municipalities, including helping Westchester on their process to reopen Gay Street. Skip previously served as the chairman of the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. And a question, Skip, if you could help us, a few questions we've had about the outside dining and liquor. Are there some guidelines or folks should be thinking about when they're serving liquor outdoors and what the rules are in terms of service and, as Bob referenced, even taking it away? Some guidelines for the restaurants and their service, and maybe some things they should tell the consumer to be careful of. You just can't pick up your glass of wine and go stroll away and wander off. But some guidance you could have would be very helpful, because this is new for many of our members.
Well, obviously, in order to, and we use Westchester as an example, if the borough is now deciding to open up Gay Street, if there are businesses on Gay Street, restaurants on Gay Street that want to serve out into the street, they're going to need the municipality's approval first on how far they can distance. Secondly, I would suggest that they somehow work with the borough about how they could rope off or create an area that is their area, because that's the liability issue at this point. As you said, you can't have somebody just buy something and stroll off. The LCB will approve a location where you serve within that location, and that the patrons that are in that location are your responsibility. So it's really a question of the municipality and the individual restaurant at that location working together, and that would be an application to the LCB to expand their area to an outdoor dining area, which I have spoken with the chairman up there, and they understand the necessity to move very quickly on this, and they guarantee me that if someone files an application and it is complete, there's no issues outstanding in the application, they'll give it a 2-day turnaround for approval. Does that answer the question, Guy?
Very much so, thank you. There's another question that came in, Bob, and perhaps Bob or Skip, you may know this again, so feel free to weigh in. I'm going to go to Bob first. Could you just clarify in terms of wearing masks, both in terms of employees and in terms of customers? What is the rule, or what is the law? What has to happen, and then what might be your professional advice as to what should happen, both for employees and then for customers?
I'm going to break that into 3 parts. I'll cover customers last, front of the house first, and back of the house. Front of the house. Your servers, bus staff, they need to be wearing masks. Your hosts need to be wearing masks. Your cashiers need to be wearing masks. Back of the house, the kitchen staff. The rule in Pennsylvania is you don't need to wear a mask if it is going to make a working situation hard or unsafe. So for cooks, because they're sweating, and when your mask gets sweaty, you can't breathe enough, so that is dangerous. So cooks do not need to wear masks. Number 3, customers. We certainly want customers to wear masks. You cannot require a customer to wear a mask. That's the legal thing, because they might have a medical reason. but everyone should post the sign on the door that says, we ask that guests wear masks. Do you want to become the law enforcement for wearing masks? I've been on several calls where other peers have talked about it. Most people try not to be the police and rock the world, but I'd say in general, you want to use the signs to encourage that, be it outside in Westchester where everyone's only 6 feet apart. That would be the rule. And also for customers, and then I'll pass it over to Skip. While you're eating, you don't need to wear a mask. There is no waiting inside a restaurant, even in the green phase, for your table to be ready. You still have to be socially distanced, but while you're not eating, you should be wearing a mask. And I'll pass it over to Skip to add some more.
Skip, do you have anything to add
Bobby.
on to that regarding masks? Yeah.
Well, I agree with everything that Bob said. I think it's a very difficult situation. To be frank with you, I'm on my way back from Jersey in the car, and I can tell you what I saw over the weekend there was a lot of no social distancing. And I made that comment that I think it's going to be very interesting as time goes on if a restaurant does not at least post the requirements and the guides of the governor of Pennsylvania, as well as the health department in Chester County, and at least attempt to have people adhere to that, whether it's 6 feet in social distancing while they're waiting to get in or waiting to go outside. Obviously, when they're sitting at a table with people that they're eating with, that won't be necessary. And I think the restaurateur has to make sure that those tables are 6 feet apart. I did notice in Westchester last week a few restaurants that were not adhering to that. I think down the road, you're going to see some litigation as to how somebody caught the coronavirus and whether they were not handled correctly in a restaurant. You know how everybody decides to blame someone else on those kind of things. So I think the restaurants have to be careful of that. I agree with Bobby. Talk to your insurance agent, make sure you're covered. What I said earlier, you'll be responsible for the area that is the outside dining area that you designate to the LCB and get approved. And I think that it's important to at least advise people as to what you expect out of them. You can't be the police and you can't force them to do it, but I think you have to be at least giving them proper notice so if they elect in their freedom to do what they want to do, that's not your responsibility. That's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you, Skip, and thanks, Bob. We have a question from Michael that came in regarding PPP loans, which I know may be of interest to a number of folks. One of the folks on our call with us to help answer is Mary Frances Garrity, who's an executive senior vice president with the Chester County Economic Development Council. I'm going to go to her in a second for the PPP question. But I did want to add something to both Bob and Skip, and it's sort of from the consumer standpoint. And that is that there are the rules and regulation, but we're all in the world of customer service. You know, our chamber's in the business of customer service, the visitors bureau's in the customer service business, all of you in the restaurant are. And I have been following a number of consumer confidence, public affairs surveys, focus groups, and interest groups. And I'll just simply say that there's something we're all going to have to deal with. And one is following the law, but 2 is being very cognizant of conveying information, whether it's through signage at your business, through tangible things at your business, or through using social media, whether your restaurant uses Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what you do to convey things. Each of you are going to have to make a decision as a businessman or a businesswoman, what you're going to do to give your customers that sense of balance. You neither want the restaurant to look the way it did in January, nor do you want it to look like an EPA toxic zone. But you're going to have to give that comfort level to your folks. And a number of restaurants are going to Facebook and showing some of the signs that they'll see or talking about the things that Skip and Bob referenced in terms of how to wait for a table and things of that nature. So just think about that. There's the law, and then there's what you think the balance is at your establishment and the steps you may want to take. With that, there's a PPP question, and I'll ask Mary Frances if she can help with this. If not, as for all the questions, any question we can't fully answer today, you can follow up with us at business@chesco.org, and we'll get back to you. So PPP, in order for the loan to be converted to a grant, supposed to use 75% of it on payroll. What do you do if, because of circumstances that have now changed, an employee who was full-time is now going to work part-time because he or she either likes working part-time or because they have a child at home or elderly parent at home, they can't come back and do full-time? How will that impact your ability to convert that? I don't mean to throw that hot potato to you, Mary Frances, but if you're comfortable doing that, I appreciate it. If not, we'll get Michael the answer.
Thanks, Guy. My understanding of the can you hear me? My understanding of the PPP ruling is about retaining employees, whether it is their decision to come back part-time or not. It is that you are retaining that employee. So I don't think that Michael is going to have that big of a problem, since his employee is going to be retained even though he wishes to be part-time.
Right. So I would build on that to say twofold. One is you need not make it confrontational, particularly if it's by your agreement and the employee's agreement. You just would need to document it in a note or an email exchange. I'm making this up, but for this scenario, hey, Guy, it's time to come back and we're going to need you cooking every day. And Guy says, I can only cook on weekends. I can't come back, and we reach an agreement. You just need to be able to document that for the bank where you got the PPP loan from, that there was a good faith effort and the employee cannot do that. Secondly, to the extent to which you then hire Susan as the cook for the days Guy's not there, you're using that on payroll. So that should cover you. So the idea is that a percentage, first of all, you're to work on employee count, but second is to work on using the money for payroll. And in paying, in this scenario, in this hypothetical, in paying Guy and Susan, you'll reach your employee payroll threshold. And I would say, again, beyond that, be very happy. There are a number of attorneys, accounting firms, and even folks from the SBA who've been helping us the last 100 days. So, Michael, you can reach out to us at business@chesco.org, and you reach out to me directly at the chamber. We will get you on the phone or connected by email with someone today, and you can ask a very business-specific question if you'd like about your business, and make sure that we get you an answer as soon as possible.
Guy,
yes.
Let me add to the information that you just provided. The initial balance was 75-25. It's now 60-40. 60% for employees, 40% for overhead. So there's some new flexibility, and the time extended from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. But you brought up another important one, which is in the materials that we have for everyone today. There's the UC 1921 form, which is an interactive offer of work to the employees. So should you offer employment and they don't take it back, there's a nice little Pennsylvania form to fill out and send it in so that you're covered and you can say that you've offered them the job. So there is a way to keep a record of that and that file is in the materials that we have today.
Thank you. We have a question from John. He has two questions. I'm going to take the second one first. So where would you recommend, Bob or others, please feel free to jump in, Bob, where would you recommend that these folks go for their restaurants to find advisory signage for their employees or for customers that they may want to post in the restaurant, back in the kitchen or in other locations at the restroom or the front door? Where would be the best place to find that signage, and is it able to be printed out, or do you have to order it? Could you explain that process, and then I'll get to John's second question.
Yes, I have the materials for you, and I'm going to just bring up a little explanation of it. So here we go. I'm going to share the screen. The places to get this, and these are all the materials that came along. One from the National Restaurant Association. There is a document that we've attached that is their reopening guidance update dated May 22nd. But at the end of that, there is a number of signs for guests back of the house, front of the house. Also, Save Serve, which you've all heard about because your servers are all Save Serve certified. And of course, the kitchen and your certified food manager is Save Serve certified. We have 4 signs that's included with the materials. both in English and in Spanish. So you've got everyone covered, from the proper ways to wash hands to cleaning. Another source, the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. They have a number of signs there, from one for guests, please wear a mask. Again, that's included in the materials that we have today. There is a few of the other signs that you need to have, like the cocktails to go infographic that comes from the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. That same sign can be found multiple places at PRLA and from the LCB, but we have that in the materials that we had today. Back to you.
Thank you. And there was a second question, which may be, again, helpful for a few folks. And I know we're also joined by Ernie Holling. Ernie's not only an elected official, but he serves as the executive director of the trade association of the township officials in our county. So he wears a few hats, not only obviously being an expert in his home community, but understanding things across the county. And a few things, the issue John raised was of barriers or trying to put some limitations. So if Bob or Ernie, Skip, if you want to weigh in on the issue of barriers, I guess one is in the area of when these municipalities like Phoenixville, Westchester, Kennett Square, Oxford, what type of barriers should be there? And then secondly, for your restaurant, if you're doing outdoor dining or even doing a waiting line, what type of barriers, where would they need to be placed, and how might they be constructed in order to comply with code?
Let me take the first shot at that. For barriers, you can simply go to your favorite hardware store and get plastic to make the barriers. There's a number of companies that do make barriers. On the Pennsylvania Restaurant website, you can get some of the barriers too. I've seen everything from homemade ones that work to ones that are sold and shipped to you. Barriers, where most people forget to have them, they don't all have to be made out of plastic. If you have outdoor dining areas, a barrier might be something as simple as a shower curtain. Now, it can't have holes in it like a screen door, but if it's a solid piece of material, that is also acceptable right now as a barrier. And last one, and then I'll pass it on to someone else to add to this. If you have a booth and the booths are back to back, at the top of the booth, the one regulation said that the barrier has to be above the tallest person's head. So, and I would say probably a foot above the highest person's head. So you might need to add something temporarily to the back of a booth so that there's some separation between tables. And with that, I'll pass it on to someone else to add.
And Ernie, is there anything, or Skip, I'll go to you first, Ernie.
Yeah, nothing exciting to add to that list. I think the most novel version of that barrier was done in Copenhagen, Denmark, where they actually put up clear tents when they dined outside. So each party was inside its own clear tent, which was probably the most novel version of that. But no, I think Bob covered the major points that I know of.
Hey, Skip, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of outdoor dining that we should be aware of in terms of barriers?
The only thing is I would suggest that the barrier be such that it is clear as to what your, as I said earlier, what your area of approved liquor service is, and be rest assured that drinks to go are much different than people getting up from their table and walking around. So I would be careful as to making sure that your barrier is such that you outline your area of approval and make sure that you control that area of approval.
Thank you. We have an important question, something we haven't discussed, and I would throw this open to any of our experts to weigh in. One of the questioners sent in the following. So let's fast forward a couple days or a week or so, and unfortunately, one of the members of your team feels ill, and he or she later gets back to you as the owner-operator and says, I've tested positive. So again, you're running Guy's Cafe, and the cashier calls me and says, I've tested positive. What are my responsibilities to the coworkers? What are my responsibilities to the customers? Everything from notification to cleaning. So what's the protocol? Play it forward. And Bob, you raised your hand first. We'll start with you. Let's play forward what happens in that scenario.
Okay. First thing, and this was also one of the questions in the chat room, you should take your employees' temperatures when they come to work. You know, with one of those infrared things, you can take their forehead temperatures. Some people keep a log that they've done it just to have a record that they've actually done it. So that's the first part. Two, if they're sick, they shouldn't come to work. You know that as a certified food manager, that if employees have a temperature or are sick, they're not supposed to come to work, so they should stay home. There's also a list of things that you need to do. Now, I'm going to jump over one part. If you're having a large event, say a wedding of 100 people, that's could be allowed. You need to, as the restaurateur, you need to have reservations today in this phase. So you need to have like a reservation book, whether you do it electronically or you have a paper one, you need to have a reservation book. In the event, it's a large party. The host must retain a list of all of the guests, who they were, and how to reach them, so that if someone is seriously sick, the contact tracers can then go around and reach back to them. And then with that, I will pass it on to someone else to add.
Yeah, I could jump in there a little bit. On the restorechestercounty.org website, under the restaurant tab, there is a list of what to do if you have an employee who has been declared positive with COVID. So there's a roster there. There's also a link on our resource pages to the CDC sterilization processes and procedures, which is a fairly straightforward document on how do you do it. And there are definitely requirements that you need to take steps to re-sanitize the area.
Thank you. Ernie, I had a question, which in one form or another has come in from a few different people, so I'll try to put it in one in a very straightforward way. So who do I call? I have a restaurant and I have a question about my outdoor dining or liquor. You know, who do I call at the township? What's the person, who's the person I'm asking to talk to get common sense guidance about where my business is located?
Well, typically I would reach out to any of the townships that have a township manager, to the office of the manager, right? If the township doesn't have a manager, then typically the staff lead person is the township secretary. And they're good sources for that. You can also reach out to the elected officials, some of which are more attuned to this than others, but I would start with the office staff first. Also, you can reach out to the Chester County Association of Township Officials, and we will find an answer if you don't get one locally.
Terrific, thank you. As we're getting ready to wrap this session up, I just would remind you that if you have a question before we wrap up, just enter it in the chat room. But I'm going to go around to each of the experts. They all don't like being called experts, but they are. They're very helpful and they've been volunteering their time. I remind you, all the folks on this call are volunteering their time. But I'm going to go around to each of them and see if there's something we haven't covered or one issue you wanted to raise. And I'll begin with Mary Francis. And again, she's the Senior Vice President at the Chester County Economic Development Council. And the Economic Development Council for decades has been helping businesses locate or expand here by helping them find business locations, physical locations, and getting the funding or training for their staff. So Mary Francis can help with that and her team there at the CCEDC. But Mary Francis, is there any subject or comment you would like to bring up to this group to make sure they're aware of as they head into this new reopening phase?
Not as it pertains to the restaurant world. I would defer, I think, to all those experts who are on the call. I would say, however, that there will be a new round of state funding called a Main Street grant program that is being rolled out. They expect the guidelines to be ready and the application process to be open around June 30th. So for all those people who did not take advantage or could not take advantage of the county program, this new state program will be available. So for restaurateurs on the call and owners of small businesses in the county who weren't able to participate in the county program, stay tuned. That application should be opening soon. Thanks, Guy.
Sure. And you'll be able to find that information through the Economic Development Council's website, through our chamber website, any of the other local regional chambers, and as well as Restore Chester County. I'm going to go next to Ernie and then Skip. Ernie, is there anything from a local government compliance or local government interaction that these folks should be aware of as we wrap up?
No, because I think we've stressed the point that you really need to talk with your municipality about whether you can do outdoor dining and that things. As an example, in West Pikeland Township, under its zoning ordinances, outdoor dining is prohibited. So you need to be sensitive to that. You'll also find there are techniques for being flexible, and you need to check that with the township. Mary Frances, also, isn't there a program this Friday at 9 o'clock on grant applications that might apply to this group?
Yes, there is a webinar that is scheduled through Restore Chester County, and you can hear my today. And we should be able to get as much information out to you. They'll be participating. The CDFI Representative Danforth will be on the call answering any questions you might have relative to that program. Thanks, Ernie.
Yep.
Thank you both. And then Skip, anything either from the liquor code side or local government compliance that you'd like to share with the restaurant owners?
I think Ernie handled that and said everything. I think it's important to make sure the municipality permits outdoor dining. And also, for that matter, there are municipalities that may permit something, but not necessarily the sale of alcohol. I would make sure that if I make an application for outdoor dining, I specifically have a plan and a map showing to the LCB where it's going to be, how I'm going to control that area, and how many tables patrons I can have in that location based on what Bobby said with social distancing and whatnot. Other than that, very important if you are not, if your municipality permits it, but then you're not within the public right-of-way, to make sure that if you're in a shopping center or if you're in some other location, that you speak with your landlord, and whatever you do, if they give you a portion of the parking lot, if they give you some area, that you're also very cognizant of how you green that off, so the safety of other people. And the other issue that I think most municipalities are requiring to make sure that there's no blockage of pedestrian walkways, whether it be within the municipalities like the borough of Westchester or other areas such as a shopping center where people will be walking by. So that's another issue that I think you need to look at if you're looking to do that.
So as we wrap up, I'm going to go back to Susan and then Bob to wrap up. And so I'm just going to do a few housekeeping items. Again, everything, this recording, this session's been recorded. It'll be on the Restore Chester County site. All of the different chambers, business groups have their own web pages with information. Bob's gave you a litany. His PowerPoint and information will be available. I guess when in doubt, go to the Restore Chester County site. And when in doubt, when you have a question, you can email us at business@chesco.org. And any question you send us, we'll try and get you a reply within 24 hours with someone who can help you in that space. Again, our goal here is to help every business, and in this case, restaurants, but every business get open and try and reach your full and maximum potential to be thriving for you, your employees, and your customers. So we hope you take advantage of us. No question is stupid, no question is embarrassing, and no question is about gotcha. The focus of all of this is to help us to get back up and running and restore our county to the great place it has been for businesses and residents. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan for her final comments, and then we'll turn it over to Bob to wrap things up. So Susan, the floor is yours.
Short and sweet. I hope this was helpful for everybody. You've got a lot of adjustments to go through. I appreciate the situation. It isn't easy. We're moving to green on Friday, so whether that means you're going to outdoor because it closed right now, or moving into indoor, or want to wait and see how it goes, whatever stage you're in, we empathize with you, and we want to be of help in any way that we possibly can. Thanks to everybody who participated. for Bob for presenting for the experts, which you are, gentlemen. Mary Frances, appreciate you being on the call. And again, as Guy provided the information to follow up, business@chesco.org. Look for the recording and follow-up information on the website. Thank you.
All right. With that, I will share just a couple last slides to tell you all some more good news, and then I'll pass it back to Guy. I've shared a slide with the customer attitudes. I just wanted you to know there are a lot of customers that are going to come out, and on this slide, if you see the first two on the left that strongly agree, those are the customers that are going to come out and support your business. The ones on the very right that strongly disagree are very concerned about COVID and passing that. And that was in one of the other slides that we talked about in one of the other questions. So what customer attitude are the customers going to be watching? Well, some were worried about that second wave of coronavirus. They're going to be watching your employees to see if they are following the standards for cleanliness. Are they wearing gloves? Are the menus not reusable and being ripped up? Are there barriers or partitioning? Are the people observing the 6-foot social distancing? These right here, you can see were the top ones that came from a SIP Science presentation. There's a YouTube video that goes along with it that just talks about what customers had expected. And one last thing, I'm here to help the team answer any questions that you might have. And if there's some that are a little bit more confidential in nature, we're glad to answer those too in a private format so that you don't have to ask all the questions in public. Guy, it's all yours.
Thank you. I just want to close on a positive note. As you move along your phase of reopening, whether it's opening your doors for the first time in 100 days or you're expanding your services, in the midst of the chaos, if you have the opportunity, take a picture, post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook, tag us at the different chambers, at the Chester County Chamber or any of the local chambers, tag the Visitors Bureau, tag the county. Help us share your story, help us promote it, because right now it's not about memberships and fees, it's about helping businesses. So share good news, share your specials, show your customers, encourage your customers to do the same. As we say, shout it from the mountaintop, let everybody know that you're open and serving. And our goal again is to have you all be successful and be a great place to work for you and all of your employees and your customers. So we're here to help you get up and going, but we're also here to help and share your good news as you move back to the way things should be. With that, I want to thank all of our experts for being with us. I want to thank you in the restaurant industry for taking time out to be with us, and showing your concern for your employees and your customers and participating. With that, best of luck, and we look forward to hearing good news, and we're here to help if you need it. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.